Yo, imagine yourself studying Japanese, all happy and such. You come across a word you don't know. What do? You get your dictionary out, you look up the word, and you start reading the Japanese definition. You might be wasting your time. Alright, let's rewind a little bit. You're learning Japanese. How do you learn Japanese? Being consistent over a long period of time. Avoiding things that are frustrating is the easiest way to stay consistent and enjoy your studies in the long term. So in the end, if it feels like a frustrating waste of time to parse everything in these Japanese definitions, it probably is. If it doesn't, then maybe it isn't. But there's still things we should be careful about. Here's my take on it. You already know a language. Leverage it to learn new one. Using Japanese definitions every time you learn a new word is a waste of time more often than not. That isn't to say that Japanese definitions are unhelpful or bad though. Both are great for their own purposes, but you have to be smart about it. Thing is, it's much faster to look up a word in English and then see the definition and immediately move on. When you read Japanese definitions, you might have a bad time with speed and sounding like a real person when you speak. If you're playing like a game or doing whatever in Japanese, you're trying to look up all these words. You maybe find a word you don't know. And if you look it up starting with Japanese definitions, you're going to find something in there that you just won't understand. So then you're going to look up that word. And then in that definition, there's going to be another word you don't understand. And then in that definition, there's going to be another word. We have this never-ending rabbit hole. Lots of time wasted. And why is it time wasted? We look up a word and then we learn a few words when we look up that word. That's great, right? There should be. I'm sorry. It's not. In this rabbit hole, you're going to find a big pile of rabbit, not helpful words. So you're going to take this pile of rabbit, not helpful words, and you're going to try to use them in a conversation. It's going to go awful. No one's going to know what you're trying to tell them. Personal experience. On top of that, once you're out of the rabbit hole, like remembering those words that you learned is going to be way harder because you don't have English to attach that word to. It's much harder to remember words and like really fully understand them. That's also personal experience. I've been through that many times. That said, there are definitely good parts about using Japanese definitions. Sometimes the English definitions suck! So it can really help to use a Japanese definition from that point on. Here's an example. In the Native Shark community recently, I posted the word nimotsu on a sign. Fuku wo nimotsu-kake ni go ryou kudasai is what this sign says. So there's nimotsu. So nimotsu-kake, someone was confused on what nimotsu means because they looked it up on jisho, so in English, great. And they saw luggage, baggage, or packages. So how can you hang up like a suitcase on this hook here? What? Doesn't make any sense. So let's take a look at the Japanese definition. Here we have number 1. So unpan unsou suru shinamono. So yeah, not that one. Okay. So that's like cargo and stuff, whatever. All right, let's look at number 2. 住人に感じられるもの、負担となるもの、お荷物. So from this definition, we see that nimotsu is something that can be felt as a burden. And that really expands what nimotsu could be. Because if you just look at the English definition, you're looking at, oh, it's luggage, it's maybe cargo. You look at the Japanese, okay, yep, cargo is still there. And then anything that can be felt as a burden. So what that means is anything in your hands that you don't want to be holding when you're like at a Nagashi Somen restaurant, like where I found this sign, you can put that on the hook. So if you have a heavy winter jacket and maybe it's too hot and you take it off, that is your nimotsu. So that's a much more accurate representation of nimotsu. Thankfully, this confusion, while it can happen kind of a lot with English definitions, it kind of gets taken care of if you're learning words in context. My recommendation is go check out Native Shark. There's a link down in the little doobly-doo over there, and that gets you an extended free trial. And what's good about Native Shark is they teach all their sentences in context, which is really kind of the most important thing, because when you are learning Japanese, you can learn what words to say and like how to say something. But the biggest thing that I've noticed in my studies that has hurt me is I didn't know when to say something, which is really one of the big pluses about Native Shark. So go check it out if you're curious. Here's another example I found recently. I see this word on here and it says, 時間をかけて堪能したい. And I saw this 堪能 and I was like, oh, I know you can read this as kanno as well, but like, which one is it? So I look up the English definition. I see tanno, and then I look up and it shows kanno as well. And it's basically the same word, so I don't know what reading they're using here. So then I go to Google and I Google the difference of tanno and kanno, yomikata. And then I get this nice article that tells me how kanno is basically just the old version, and now everyone says tanno. There you go. That's a perfect example of when to use the Japanese definition when the English ones fail you. But the default should probably be English first. So what am I saying here? Basically, learning new words with Japanese definitions first probably won't help you as much as you think it will. But using Japanese definitions to clarify words you've already checked in English, 10 out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you want more ramblings from me about just learning Japanese or maybe some Japanese tips or maybe living in Japan, feel free to subscribe and follow me on whatever social media. Just look in the description. There's Twitter or something. I don't know. I don't know. See you in the next one.